Truth Seeker and or its affiliates are not responsible for any strange phenomena that may occur during or after listening to this podcast, which may include the following: heightened senses of awareness, psychic abilities, UFO sightings, alien contact, time loss, out-of-body experiences, ringing in the ears, ESP, lucid dreaming, increased synchronicities, astral projection, telepathy, stronger intuition, levitation, miraculous healings, and or remote viewing. Please be advised to listen at your own discretion.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the Truth Seeker podcast.
Gargoyles! Psychics! Everything's ungodly! Dark's at it!
Streaming live at truthseeker.com.
She's not a Christian!
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering in dark's at it stuff!
And now, your host, Truth Seeker.
Yo, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Truth Seeker. This is the Truth Seeker Podcast. Got another exciting show for you guys today. We're going to get into some good conversation and dialogue. I like to talk to interesting people about their stories and mix it in with spirituality and faith and hope and love and things like that. And so I think that everybody has a piece of the puzzle to kind of bring something to the table and to take their piece, put it together, and formulate a picture. And so there's so many different people out there who are doing things that's working for them, whether it's, we have people on here who are coming off of drug addiction, people who are coming out of gang involvement, just negative lifestyles in general. And there's a process that they have to go through and things that are happening for them and things that are working. And so I just love to have conversations with these people and hear their stories of redemption and how they're making a difference in the world now. And essentially how this podcast was started is just having conversations like these over the telephones for hours on the end with myself and friends, 2-3 hour phone calls that when we got done with the conversation, we're just like, man, I wish, other people could hear this. I wish we could record this conversation and share it with people. So therefore we got into podcasting and doing like Bible studies and things like that over conversation, and using Blog Talk and different tools like that, bringing callers in and stuff, other people coming into the show, and started podcasting back in 2011. So essentially this is what this is. This is just a conversation. I don't really have any questions planned. I do have some places I want to go with the interview today. I'm good friends with this brother. We're going to get into this interview here shortly, and it's going to be exciting. Before I go any further, I got to say a huge thank you to everybody who is supporting my work on Patreon, everybody who's supporting the channel, supporting the podcast, the music, and everything that I bring to the table. If you want to do that, you can head on over to patreon.com/truthseeker. And there you get access to a bunch of cool features that we have, some rewards and different tiers. So you get access to the Patreon only Facebook group, and that's where we have discussion there and we talk about different guests that people want to see on the show. You get access to my full discography. It's like 10 plus albums that I've released. We have exclusive merch over there only for the patrons. And when I record a song, people are waiting on new music. When a song is done, the music is uploaded directly to Patreon. So many people are waiting on new music and new albums to come out my way. There's a bunch of new music over there, and it's exclusively for people who partner with me and support over there from month to month. Anywhere from $1, $5, $10 a month, whatever you choose to do, all of it helps. And so a huge thank you again to everyone who is supporting my work through Patreon. Patreon.com/truthseeker. So you guys enabled me to create podcasts, and so I release this stuff for free. It's free to consume, but it's not free to produce. So thank you again, everyone. All your donations, all your help and support. It means a lot. So our guests for this evening, Jeremy Payne. What's going on, my brother? Welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. What's good, man?
From Juggalo to Jesus Freak, man. It's kind of the catchphrase, right?
Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool because usually when someone's what we call in the world, when someone is lost, somebody is just out there reckless living life, and they come out of their lifestyle, whether it be gang involvement, drug involvement, whatever type of lifestyle they come out of. In your case, you know what I'm saying, being really big into the Juggalo movement, when God saves you from that stuff and that lifestyle, he usually sends you back to it. I know people who will come out of like the gay lifestyle and the rave scenes and stuff like that, and just all types of stuff, and then they go back, not to like judge the people, but to, you know what I'm saying, show that they're one of them, and to love on them, and there's a reason that they were in it to begin with, right? So tell us a little bit about your story, man, about being in the whole Juggalo scene and then coming out of it to where you are now.
Okay. I pretty much got into the Juggalo scene when I was about 14, and I was in it pretty hardcore, like from the very start for the next like 3 years, so I was 17. And though I grew up around church, pretty much my parents didn't live it. I think that's the typical American household generally. But when I was 17 is when I surrendered to God. I felt him speak to me pretty intensely, and I went home that night and I pretty much threw away all my music, as much clothes as I could. I pretty much threw away everything, and I was in church solid for about a year. But the church I was in was very legalistic. I'm not going to say that the move of God wasn't there. The pastor didn't have anointing on him, because that would be a lie. But there was just so much legalism there that it didn't line up with the Bible. And that's not even why I left. I left ultimately because I got to a point where I wasn't feeling that love that should have been there. I was pretty much feeling like an outcast of the church. So, and I'm pretty sure it was just the enemy speaking to me, but it's pretty much in my mind. I was like, well, if I can't get love where I should be, I can always get it from my peeps. So I went right back to the culture. And I was back in it for probably another 3 or 4 years, give or take. But ultimately it took me, while I was gone, or while I was away from the church, or however you want to put it, I knew where I needed to be. Yeah. And I was longing for that place with God again. So it took me about 3 years or whatever to get back there with God. But eventually I got back to my walk. I ended up youth pastoring for a few years, doing outreach. And 2010 was where I released my first the Demon Killer album, Volume 1, in 2010. And I was really pushing hard to reach to the Juggalo culture, and I really didn't see maybe a couple that were slightly doing it, but I didn't see anyone really going hard with it until about 2012. I came across Joe Hamblin, which was he was the founder, or is the founder of From Juggalo to Jesus Freak. And from there, things just started falling into place. And it was crazy because I was mentioning to you last night or whatever, but I was supposed to go to the gathering while I was in that lifestyle, but I ended up, finances fell through and I didn't go. But now that I'm saved and I'm not living that lifestyle, I've gone to the gathering like 3 or 4 years now. Yeah. To do outreach. It's just crazy, like, how God works things. But no, initially, like, I before I even got into Juggalo culture, I pretty much had that mindset, or that appeal beforehand, because I was really into, the murderous rap or grittier rap, the more underground stuff, or things like that. So I mean, I'd pretty much say I was like that to begin with. I didn't really find that click until I was about 14.
Yeah.
So
Talk a little bit about the culture, because I mean, just for somebody who doesn't know what it is, I know it's kind of like a buzzword now. Like, a lot of people know what it is. A lot of juggalos are even called gang members now. I know that's like a big thing with the whole Hatchet Man and ICP movement. They're calling them gang members and stuff. But for like somebody who doesn't know anything about that culture, what it is, what juggalo is, I guess kind of set that up. And just talk a little bit about the culture being really big on family, which I think is a key, foundation for the Juggalo movement. I was, as a high school student, I was really big into Insane Clown Posse, and called myself a Juggalo. We painted our faces and, all that stuff. So talk a little bit about the culture for somebody who has no idea what the heck a Juggalo is.
Well, honestly, you probably want to start back with like original horrorcore founding, which I mean, if you know anything about that, you got people like Bushwick Bill, Grave Diggers, and then ICP initially started the whole Juggalo term or movement, or made it bigger, should I say? But initially, you had people like Brother Lynch Hung and Esham before them.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it goes before ICP, but initially it's like I said, it's like murderous rap. Horrorcore is pretty much it's how far can you push the envelope, how violent, how much shock factor, can you get with the rap scenario, but in terms of psychopathic records specifically, and I even see Strange Music pretty much following that line too. It's really family oriented. However, like seeing how things are going now, I know there's a big divide in the culture because of the artists splitting and having indifferences and starting their own labels and stuff like that. But it really, from the beginning, it's always been family oriented, and it's usually been pushed towards the less fortunate,
the lower class
or
white kids,
lower class white kids, or
trailer
the
park
ghetto,
kids,
or things like that. Yeah, pretty
trailer
much
park.
white trailer trash.
I'm straight out the trailer park myself, man. So I fit right in.
So
yeah.
But speaking about the whole gang affiliation, is crazy. It's crazy because even though I'm not, it's hard because I'm part of the culture, but I'm not. I'm in that gray area, I guess.
Yeah.
When I went through divorce with my daughter's mother, Juggalo gang affiliation was one of the things used against me in court. And wow. I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And the whole time, granted, the judge really, she asked me about, were you like this before she met you, this and that. So she pretty much dismissed it. But the whole time, all these months before, while I'm waiting for this trial, I'm like, man, this is bad.
Yeah,
I'm
good.
like, what do I say to this? Like, so that definitely, that's definitely a very real and present issue in that culture. I know there's some people that aren't even part of the culture anymore, but they got a tattoo on their hand with like the Hatchet Man.
Yeah.
And they get discriminated for it. I mean, me having, because we got the Crossman logo, the hybrid logo from Juggalo to Jesus Freak. And it's got him carrying the cross instead of the hatchet. But having that on my back window, I've gotten pulled over several times, and they give me bogus reasons, and I know it's because I have a logo on the back of my window.
See if they can smell any marijuana or something like that. Yeah.
I had one cop pull me over, and he told me he pulled me over for, he said my parking light was out. Yeah, I was like, I'm driving. How do you know my parking light's out? And then he proceeded to ask me if I had any paraphernalia or drugs or any weapons on me. And I was like, are you serious, dude? But that's definitely an issue present in the culture. But ultimately, the culture revolves rap that pushes the envelope and a unity, and going along with that unity, that family scenario. Being at the gathering, a lot of the security that oversees the gathering and stuff like that. I've even heard some of them say they saw less violence or less fights at the gathering than they do at a country concert.
I know, that's crazy. Yeah,
That's crazy. You would I mean, with such violent music, you would imagine the opposite, but it's not.
yeah. Well, there's just such a need for acceptance, and what the Juggalo community provides is for the people who are essentially outcast to actually come together and be a family,
Belong.
because and you know what I'm saying, have a sense of that, you know what I'm saying, that they have purpose and that they're special. And so like a lot of the kids who are involved with it are people who grew up without mom and dads, or their mom and dad worked all the time, or there was you know what I'm saying, fighting in the household, people coming from broken homes. And then just like a gang would receive somebody in, and you have a gang leader or whatever, someone who's like a father figure, that's essentially what the movement is about. And but to see like there's like a lot of drug use, like you said,
exactly,
like a lot of over infatuation with violence, with murder, cutting people's heads off, stabbing people, and they sing about it in songs and stuff like that. So essentially, with the whole horrorcore genre is, for those of you who don't know, it's essentially like a horror movie. Like if you was to watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre and turn it into a rap song or a rap album, or any of your whole scary movies and stuff like that. I remember listening to Gravediggers when I was a kid, and I found I was a little kid listening to Gravediggers, and I actually found out about them because I was a big fan of horror movies, and we had the movie Demon Knight, and then we got the Demon Knight soundtrack with you know what I'm saying, Billy Zane, which is a great horror movie. But the soundtrack had Filter on there, that song Hey Man Nice Shot, which is an amazing song. But then they had this other song on there by the Gravediggers, and it was I think it was called 1900 Suicide, and just a random song. And I'm probably 8-9 years old, and I'm listening to a song about killing yourself as a little kid, and it's like it's over. And then I wonder 4 or 5 years later why I had an over infatuation with maybe trying to kill myself when I got depressed. And then it's coming through the music as a little kid, you know, and they're going through all these scenarios on great ways to kill yourself, and like almost like compelling you to do it. And it gets crazy, man. Talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's in there that now that you look back up on it, you see how it kind of affected you as well. Like just some of the lyrics, whether it's ICP or Gravediggers or whatever.
Honestly, man, it's when I got saved, you know, my eyes opened a lot, but I'd have to say even when I became a father, my eyes opened even more, because the music, I mean, I knew all the lyrics by heart, and it was crazy. I never saw anything wrong with it. You know, you typically have people saying that, and I'm not trying to bash on ICP, but typically people, you know, Juggalos, well, ICP's Christian, but I'm sorry, you know, the fruit of the tree tells me what tree it is.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, if you're talking about being promiscuous, doing drugs, killing people, stealing, or witchcraft or stuff like that, that's obviously telling me you ain't fruitful of God, you know. So yeah, so I mean, and I think and it's not bashing, it's trying to paint the tree for what it is, you know. And being at the gathering, man, it's sad, man, like the kind of stuff you see. You know, there was a woman at one of the gatherings where she literally just, you know, and it's a little explicit to say, but she literally was like bent over like a fence or whatever, and there was just a line of dudes going through her.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
just
And that's
insane. Yeah, it's insane.
Like, and me as a father, like, I'm like, you know, I would never want to see, like, it's just like, it pricked my heart. I'm like, man, like, that's someone's daughter.
Yeah,
you know, you know, and even more so, that's whether she's living for God or not. That's God's child, you know.
Yeah.
It's just it's rough, but as a personal influence, I grew up very broken home. Both my parents had very big issues on their own between the two. So I grew up very bitter and hateful. So the music drew me in that much more. But what I find, and people are like, a lot of people are just like, it's just music, it's just music, it's just music. But that's nonsense. Music amplifies emotion. That's why we use it in movies. We even use it in war. You know, it will amplify the emotion you're going for. So if I'm hateful, or I'm dealing with issues of that nature, or I'm suicidal and I listen to stuff like that, there's people that don't, you know, it doesn't really push them, but the majority, it's gonna stir your thought. You know, it's gonna push you further in that direction. You know, I mean, if you're smoking weed, you're gonna play something about smoking weed. You getting romantic, you're gonna play something like that. I mean,
get you in the mood.
you know, it goes that perspective. So I mean, for me, horrorcore drew me in really bad because I was a hateful kid, man. I was bitter, I was hateful, I was confused, and then the whole like I said, I grew up in a broken home and pretty much hypocritical, quote unquote, Christian home, but you know, there was no foundation there. So when I heard ICP talking about the Dark Carnival and little quotes about God or things like this, I'm like, oh, I can be Christian and be evil at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, so that engulfed me too. I didn't have a divide.
Yeah, I see where they're coming from as far as the whole Christian thing, and like, hey, we've been Christian the whole time. We just couldn't tell you. Like, I could see the gimmick as far as these wicked clowns who are repaying people for their sins. Like, whatever you do, you're gonna get the karma back. If you and the people that they attack are people who have like made bad choices, or when you die, this is when you're going to get your retribution, even though you've lived a lavish life on the earth and you've been rich and you've enjoyed the whole delicacies that the world has to offer, but you were a bad person. You beat your wife, you beat your kids and stuff, and now it's our turn to torture you. That type of stuff. So almost like God's wrath, or like God's retribution to people who are getting away with doing that kind of stuff, you know?
I do follow that. Like, I honestly feel like if they would have done it differently, that the whole aspect would have been awesome. I mean, there are a lot of good aspects to it.
Yeah.
But the one thing that really bothers me about it,
as far as the art is concerned.
That's what I'm talking about. You know, I mean, obviously, I have an issue with this, you know, stuff that they boast about,
exactly.
Or how they
because they're kind of doing the same thing about the
forward, but it's like, you know, the thief says, at least I don't kill, you know, like, you know, you're both wrong, you know, and the Bible says, you know, that I'm to tend to the beam of my own eye before I tend to my brother's speck. So, you know, if your life isn't right, how can you comment on someone else's? But the initial issue I've always had since I got saved was the kind of message that I hear coming from that, even if it was sound, is a works-based salvation. There's no blood of Christ. There's no deliverance.
I don't think that's ever been
like that.
Shared,
It's pretty much you either do good or you do bad, and that's how you get your reward or get your punishment. But, you know, I mean, you and I know very well that we are saved by grace. There's nothing we can do to save ourselves.
Yeah. So you're in the culture, you're into this negative music about killing people, about kidnapping people, putting them in a trunk and being the whole neighborhood serial killer. They got songs about kidnapping people and killing them and riding around with dead bodies in your trunk for weeks and months at a time, and your car
Yep.
stinks because you got bodies in your trunk. Like, this is the kind of music that they're talking about, right? And a lot of it's catchy and stuff like that, and it's part of that whole weird subculture, and there is an entertainment value to it, right? Just like watching a scary movie or something. But you actually come out of that, you get saved, you have this revelation of Christ, Jesus touches you, and then you feel compelled to go back to those people, to go back to the culture, and not just forget about them. Like, I got saved, and you guys are demonic, I'm staying away from you guys, which a lot of Christians do. You know what I'm saying? They just stay in the
majority.
church. They stay in the church,
Yeah.
and they do Christian rap concerts at the church for other saved people. And I come out of that as well. And they're trying to win the loss, but they're just preaching and rapping to church kids,
Yeah.
So you actually come out of that. You have a passion to go back in there. So stylistically, the whole genre of what is called horrorcore, which it has a feel to it. It's like a darker themed, but you can still do that type of music as far as stylistically, but then the lyrics from your lyrics are about bringing hope, or you can paint a picture about the evil tormented person that you was by your demons and by your past and by your sins, but you put a twist on it and say, now I found salvation through Christ, and so I was this evil person, I would rob you, I would try to fight you or kidnap you or whatever the case is, but now I'm this. And so you're doing music essentially based on that, going into the culture and trying to win them with a style of music that they like or they're used to. So we got a couple questions in the chat room. People want to know about the face paint, and I guess if people aren't, if people aren't familiar with the Insane Clown Posse, they paint their faces up like clowns, and then even people who are just affiliated with Psychopathic Records and just horrorcore in general, Tech Nine, like all of them paint their faces. So talk a little bit about the face paint and about yours, and people want to know if it has any significance. And someone even said that you're a Jesus freak, but you have Satan face paint on. And I know you get this stuff all the time, being a Christian, going back into that realm. So talk a little bit about their face paint, and then talk a little bit about yours as well.
That's my new album I just released, Ride or Die. Actually, the title track pretty much is breaking down the whole face paint aspect or coming out of the culture. But the whole devil face is probably the typical thing I get from church folk.
Yeah.
and what kills me about that, just real quick, is that's so Hollywood. Where biblically are you getting that from?
Yeah.
Where? Give me scripture. Any scripture I've read about the devil says he appears to be an angel of light, makes himself appear beautifully or whatever. So this whole red horned devil type stuff just doesn't make sense to me biblically or theologically. But ultimately the face paint is supposed to represent, it just happened like when I was working on my the first Demon Kill album in 2010, and I was very amateur at that point, but I was trying to come up with a concept to symbolize coming out of the culture, and I just ended up coming up with this. I mean, it was very simple, but it pretty much caught on. But what it's supposed to symbolize is pretty much two things in one. Number one, I used to idolize men that paint their face. I used to put them up on a pedestal. My whole life revolved around them. But now I'm doing away with that, and I'm idolizing Christ. Christ is my savior. Christ is my everything. That is the man. That is the one I look to. And above that, it's based off Revelation 1:5. And unto Christ who washed us from our sins in his own blood. So the whole point of the red face is supposed to be being blood bought, being washed of my sins and being brought out of that culture. That's literally the face paint in a nutshell. And it's crazy because I've gotten so much flack from from the face paint
Oh, yeah.
or
And
from the Demon Killer albums.
You're gonna get
It's-
it in the church realm. Like if you go to the world, and if that's your target audience, which is juggalos, you should be fine. But going into churches with the red face paint, like we were talking about yesterday, you gave an instance where you go to a show, and I've had to do it as well, where you're like the only white guy there, right? And then you're the only white guy at this all black church, and not only the only white guy, but your face is painted red, blood on it and stuff like that.
Yeah. Granted, typically I haven't gotten any the times that I have had my face painted, whatever, pretty good reaction, once I've rapped and all that. It's just the initial shock factor of this dude got his face painted. Mm-hmm. What is going on? Yeah. But no, I even had the Demon Killer Volume 1. I had that in 3 different Christian stores, and one of the Christian stores, one of the copies got bought, and someone brought it back and threw a fit and complained to the store, and was like, "Do you even have an understanding of what you are selling here?" Blah blah blah. Yeah. So they pulled that album off. They left the Righteous Talk the Way album, whatever, because it was earlier in the music when that happened. But I just ended up going to all the stores, and I was like, "Look, I sell more out of my trunk. I'll just, it's cool. I'll take them."
Dude, you know what I'm saying? You're not the only one, though. I think POD, when they released their first mainstream album, The Fundamental Elements of Southtown, they had it was sold in the Christian stores, and there was an image of a dude meditating. It was like a wooden man, and there was all these different symbols and a dove carrying a Trinity knot and stuff like that. And they actually wouldn't sell it, and so they actually made a blacked out cover with just the whole cover's black except there's a little square in the middle of the album cover where their name is. So it's a black front with just the POD. It's the actual album cover, but you can only see the name and stuff. And so the Christian bookstores wouldn't carry it because there was a dude on it meditating and stuff like that. And I remember
and that not trying to cut you off, but that instance right there, that instance doesn't make sense to me because the Bible talks about meditating.
Yeah.
Granted, there are different practices of meditation, but just that itself. Yeah. I mean, if it's in the Bible and it's within context, it's
and this was the early days of Christian rock. This was still the early days when that stuff was kind of just what I'm saying, trying to cross over a little bit. And then I had some singles when I put out my first Christian rap album. I had some singles that I was submitting to the local radio station, and I had one of them that at a live concerts, it was the best song. So I submitted that one. They loved it. But at the end, there was in the song, there was a gun cocking and then a shotgun sound going off, and it was we can't play it because there's a gun sound in it. It was really? Well,
what?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
I was like, what I'm saying? Play this other one. So it was cool. They ended up playing my other single that I put out, and it was cool locally, being able to ride around, and then on Friday nights and Saturday nights, you would hear your song on the radio and people calling in requesting it. So that was cool when that happened. But Christian music industry has been squirrely, and what they accept. But now, almost anything flies. There's been so much stuff come through, and I think the industry is saturated with gospel artists and gospel rap, especially, that everybody's a gospel rapper. Talking about the red face and the paint and stuff like that. I remember the gospel rapper Minister, who used to be called Sinister, when he got saved and he come out of gang affiliation and stuff. I don't know if he brought it over or he just started doing it, but he would wear all red, and he would wear red bandanas and red rags and stuff like that, and it was to symbolize the blood of Jesus. Not that he was a gang member or affiliated with the Bloods, but he said it to him, it represented the blood of Christ, and so he wore that everywhere he went. I know, what I'm saying, what's his name, Seven and Hog Mob, they wear purple, all purple, and they wear purple gang rags, or bandanas, whatever you want to call it, and it's a family. But to them, it represents royalty. The purple,
Yep.
that's what it represents in the scriptures, and so that's what they wear, and they get mistaken for gangs and violence and all that kind of stuff. But essentially, what Seven's doing is very similar to what you're doing, is going back to that culture and going back to those people who are in the ghettos, who are in the hoods, who know the gang slang and the gang language and stuff like that. You're doing the same thing of going back to the Juggalo community, and you're speaking their language, and they'll listen to you, right? Because you come out of that stuff, and then you have music that's good. And even with your new project, you're actually working with Mars, who has a similar story. I actually interviewed Mars on the podcast. Y'all can go back and check that interview as well. But Mars was affiliated with Dark Lotus, Insane Clown Posse, and stuff like that. So you actually have him on your new project. If you want to talk about that relationship with him, because I know you have a video shoot coming up as well.
Yeah. We're shooting a video for a song on Saturday. It's actually going to be an exclusive song. It'll have the third verse will be a exclusive feature from Excalibur, and that'll be when the video releases. That'll be for free download in the description of it. So it's like an alternative version from the album. But ultimately, it's crazy with Mars and I. I mean, back in like 2012. We were scheduled to do a show together in Michigan City. There was like a few other artists that were scheduled to go, and then Mars ended up not being able to make it. I think he had a migraine or something. But so we were friends on Facebook. I'd follow him for a while or whatever. But it wasn't until just recently, when I was starting to work on Ride or Die, that I reached out to him. And when I hit him up, we ended up talking on the phone, and talking about both our testimonies, pretty much. Chopped it up, and he agreed to feature on the album and to come open up at the album release party when it took place. And then we've gotten to perform with each other, I think once or twice since then. He's performed with some of my other peeps, other shows I wasn't able to make it, but initially he's got an amazing testimony, and it was crazy to have him on my album, because out of all the groups, Dark Lotus was probably my favorite.
Really?
and not only was it my favorite, but honestly, I liked Mars better than ABK.
Yeah.
If anyone knows the whole thing with Dark Lotus, the first album originally had Mars in it with it was ICP, Twisted, Blaze, and Mars, and then they got rid of Mars. From what I understand from everyone, Mars was getting so much love that pretty much ICP got mad about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just the buzz I've always heard, but they ultimately got rid of him, replaced him with ABK, re-released the album, and I don't know. I never felt it back then like I did the original, but it was cool to work with him. It was amazing to get him and the other cats I got on the album to be on there, because I mean I was pretty into their music back then. So I mean it's just crazy to work with them now.
yeah. It's funny too, because the Insane Clown Posse just put out a single where they were just like dissing everybody they could, and there was a line in there where they dissed Mars, and they showed his image on the video and stuff, and he's been gone for a while, and just out the blue, Violent J, disses him, and it was so funny to see Mars's response, right? Because he didn't know about it, but his inbox was blowing up from people. Hey man, you see, they dissed you in this new song and all this stuff, and he's just like, oh, I'm praying for them, and I love those guys, and may God bless them and keep them or whatever, just to handle it so humbly. And but a lot of people think that came out of the blue, but they've been beefing for a while, and Mars did a Violent J diss song, right? Or the real, the real Dark Lotus. So that's almost just like, their retaliation or retribution for him, dissing them now, but now he doesn't want anything to do with it. And I guess rightfully so, I guess.
Yeah. No, like, I mean, I gotta say his diss, I mean, obviously I don't agree with my stance now, but like his diss was rough, man. that was I mean, I don't. He came pretty rugged with that diss.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's but that was a while back, man. I'm
Yeah, I know, right? That's what I'm saying.
I'm
It's been a long time, and then Violent J just out the blue
yeah,
brings up
it's
another diss. Yeah.
and it's funny to me though, man, because it's with Mars and where he's trying to go with things and push things. It's crazy because honestly, that just made him more relevant.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I mean,
because everybody
for
kind
no
of
reason,
forgot
no
about
reason.
what he's doing now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
send an audience over his way to check him out or what he's doing. And he's
Yeah,
just preaching everybody. Yeah.
So I mean, you could almost think that a work of God.
Yeah.
Violent J probably didn't even know it, but God was kind
Yeah.
of pushing that through his mouth. But it's yeah.
Yeah, just give a quick shout out to everybody who's holding us down in the chat room live. Give a quick shout out, Adam Starseed Bay. What's up, brother? I just had an interview with him, which was amazing. It's going to be out soon. Adam Starseed Bay. Jared, what's up, brother? Chris Garner. Alyssa, Freedom Gower. Be Easy says, whoop, whoop. What up, True Seeker? Whoop, whoop. What's happening? Family. I went to my first Insane Clown Posse concert probably, and this may answer Alyssa's question, and I'll tie this in with her question. She says, "Have either of you ever found yourselves moving away from your faith after having a come to Jesus moment? If so, did you find your way back? How do you know it's the truth?" And I'll tie that into my story with my Insane Clown Posse concert because. It was a time where we were moving in miracles, praying for people over the phone and just believing God for miracles and seeing like the miraculous happen for just healing and people wanting to know Jesus and having an encounter with the Holy Spirit by us praying for them over the phone. And we were meeting together. We were going live on Facebook, praying a lot and stuff like that and seeing God move in a lot of ways. And the Insane Clown Posse was coming to Biloxi over here and in Mississippi by one of the casinos. And I've never been to an Insane Clown Posse concert, but I wanted to go. And I was like, you know what? I don't talk to a lot of my high school friends. Let me hit them up because we were all into Insane Clown Posse in high school. So I was like, let me hit them up and it'd be like a reunion. Let's just all get together. I ain't seen them in 10, 15 years, Let me invite them and we'll go hang out for the night. So I did that and there was a couple guys went. But when I was going to purchase the ticket, like I had a conviction about me, right? I was like, I know I don't need to go to this, but I want to. It's nostalgia. You know what I'm saying? Just for the night, we'll go listen to them. And it was the Riddle Box tour. And the early stuff is what I was into, right? So I bought tickets. And the weird thing is, it's like when I bought the ticket, I knew that, and it was like a 2-week span out from the concert. So I bought the ticket. And when I did, there was a conviction there. And from that moment until the concert, I was like, I knew I was doing something wrong. So it got in the way of that connection between me and God, because in order for you to flow in the spirit and to walk in true freedom, you got to have everything open, and you can't hide anything from God. You can't try to trick God. Like I mean, that's the original sin of Adam in the garden, trying to act like he didn't do something or trying to hide his sin or his emotions or his actions from God. And so me buying that ticket, I knew I shouldn't have did it. And from that point down, I was like, I didn't feel motivated to pray. I didn't feel motivated to be a Christian and be expressive about it, because I knew that I was going to this concert and I knew I was going to have some drinks. I knew I was going to enjoy the music, and there was a conviction there, man. That whole 2-week process of like, from being on a mountaintop, okay, this isn't just regular life, but we were like, there was a lot of awesome stuff happening, and I bought the tickets, and so that happened. We went to the concert, and it was nostalgic. We painted our face up and everything, right? And you know what I'm saying? We move in healing and all kind of stuff. And then here we are going to the concert to enjoy Insane Clown Posse. And like, I ended up putting somebody in a choke lock at the concert. Some dude who's probably on some freaking speed or something, man. This dude was getting all crazy. I put him in a choke lock. And then I had all these people around me who I didn't know. So there was a sense of paranoia because like I grabbed some random dude and put him in a choke lock. And I'm like, man, he's probably got a crew with him, because we're in another city,
Nah.
and you go into concerts, like you don't go by yourself. Well, it was just me and like a couple other people, but then I got paranoid because I'm looking up and people are pointing at me, screaming like, "Hey, let him go, you blah blah blah," cursing. I'm like, "Oh wow, this dude's got friends here. I may get jumped," you know. So yeah, it just brought all this negative energy, man. After that, I had fun. I definitely had fun, but from where I was going with that intimacy with God and walking in miracles and keeping my channel clean, it definitely muddied the waters up. So from that moment, it's like it took a long time to get to where I am now, and to be like, have that faith built back up and that confidence. Obviously, we could go and partake of anything we want, and there's a piece there as children of God. But I knew I was doing something wrong. It's not like I couldn't go there and go. I wasn't going ministry minded. Put it that way. Like, you could do that, and that's what you do with the gathering. You go to the gathering and hand out gospel rap CDs. You pray for people. You guys have a booth and merch and all kind of cool stuff set up at the gathering, which is the big Juggalo festival where people come from all over the world for a couple of days of camping and just tons of horrorcore artists and just all kind of artists, and it's just like the big gathering, and you guys go back to that and minister. So talk a little bit about going to that realm and stuff, and some of the things you've seen at the gathering, whether if you've seen any miracles, if you've seen anybody in tears or people convicted by your conversation or what, man, you know?
Yeah, I mean, kind of expounding off of what you were talking about with your personal instance. I can't say I've like slid back to like go to a concert or something like that, but I typically, about like, I don't know, like 80-90% of secular music I don't listen to. I typically just listen to Christian music or whatever. But I do reference other rap music though. I try to stay relevant and understand where everyone's going with everything. So I will like listen in just to listen in, not to bob my head or enjoy it. But I will say I found myself a couple times where I've been doing that, and I kind of catch my mind going where it shouldn't. Like, I'm like, you know, and before you know it, okay, 2 days have gone, and why am I still listening to it?
Yeah,
you know. So like that was something that was within the past year. That was probably a recent conviction that I dealt with. That you know, I need to kind of pull back from doing that. You know. So much and keep a limit on it.
Yeah, there's definitely a limit that should be there. I like stylistically, I like a lot of that music. It's not the horrorcore, but maybe like Ritz or Yellow Wolf or Tech Nine or whatever the case is. And especially stylistically, if we're going to be relevant to the culture and bring something to the table, we have to know, because there's a huge problem with Christian rappers right now. And I went through this, and people, some of my brothers would talk down. I'm like, dude, I can't believe you're listening to that. We're supposed to be holy. I'm like, and I want to say, that's why your music still sounds like it came out in 1994, dude. Your music is way behind it, and I swear I'm 100% with this. You have a lot of Christian artists who are in the gospel music scene. It's oversaturated with artists, and they quit listening to secular music. And they quit. Let's just say they got saved in 2000, and they quit listening to secular music in 2000. In 2008, when they get ready to drop their album, 2018, whatever, their last hip hop reference is 2000's T.I.
It's dated.
Yeah, it's dated, and
dated.
so they're coming out with music that sounds. And it's, you know, they say that Christian music is 7 years behind secular music or whatever the industry is doing, and it shows. I mean, you're doing music that sounds like old school Master P.
Typically, yeah.
I did it. It happened to me. I quit listening to gangster rap music, and then years after, I wanted to start rapping, and my music sounded like old school C Murder and Master P and crunk music, which we were in the snap music area, and I had no idea what it was. And then I would hear it on the radio in passing, but it's not like you haven't heard it, but it's to be relevant. And when you listen to people like Ritz, Yellow Wolf, and Tech, for me, it's about the speed. Okay, it's not
Yep.
that I'm not as fast as those guys at all, but if I can step up a little, because I love fast rap, right? So if I can step my game up a little bit to kind of what they're doing, just a little bit, and speed it up, bring my delivery up, listen to the beats that are people are still finding producers who are making beats that sound like they came out in 2000. And that's part of it. And so they kind of rag on you for listening to secular rap, but it should be done in a sense of like you said, not entertaining what they're saying, but the stylistically, the delivery, because there's so many times when people don't know this, man. I've seen it so many times doing gospel rap. So years ago, there's a website called thesouth.com, and this is where all the Christian rappers were.
Oh man, that's
and there was a forum there where
where
you can actually share your music there, and get collabs and stuff. And so there was a dude named Mike Shelton. This is just one example. I worked with Mike Shelton, but he would do remixes to popular songs on the radio, and he would do like songs by Bun B and Paul Wall. He would take those beats and put his own lyrics to them, and he would release them, and the Christian audience thought that those were his original songs. Enough to where people were watching like shows on MTV, and they would play Paul Wall's music, and they would write Mike Shelton and tell him that Paul Wall stole his music because they thought it was his, and he's doing remixes and stuff. And so there's a huge disconnect when it comes to the whole, saying Christian music and people who are doing it. It's just so far behind, and they don't know what's relevant. So I definitely
like I said,
man,
like
I got to.
I don't. I mean, obviously, with my ministry, it's from Juggalo to Jesus Freak. So obviously, with me being linked up with Joe Hamblin like that, like I'm 100% against listening to that music. But as an artist, or even as a minister, how are you supposed to minister about that if you don't know what that artist is saying? Yeah. So it goes both ways as an artist or as a minister. Yeah. But as far as going back out to the culture, man, that's my statement is always if I can even reach one soul, it's worth it. It's worth it's worth the flack I would get from the churches. It's worth all of it. But when we go out there, and this ties in with what we were saying about kind of like having that temptation or whatever. When we go out there, we're not just going out there administering. Like we have prayer sessions. We'll take turns. We'll go in the RV. We'll get on our knees. We'll pray. Like I gotta make sure my eyes and my heart are right. My ears are right. Because I mean, you out there, man. Even if you're on the main road, you're still hearing the music. Yeah. I mean, there's girls walking around naked there. God protect my eyes. God shield my eyes from looking where I shouldn't. So there's a lot there, but it's sad though, like you were saying, because it lacks in church. And granted, I'm not going to say church folk or church kids don't need to be ministered to, because there's even problems in church. There's no perfect church. No doubt. Every church has their problems, and that needs to be clear. But who's reaching out? Like who's reaching out? Like my good friend. He's 20 years older than me, but he's a former drug addict. He was very big into coke. He was a very big alcoholic, and God delivered him on the spot. If you check my YouTube channel, I actually posted a testimony.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that a while back actually. That's a viral video.
Yeah, he does dependency classes. And Joe Hamblin was a binge drinker. He was a drug addict, all that. Mm-hmm. Like, so, I mean, he does it as well. He even runs like a all men's ministry, where he brings men in and they get them, ministered up and discipled and get them clean. Yeah. These are important things that Seven does, all these guys. And what's crazy is before I dropped the demon kill in 2010, I never saw anyone reaching out to the Juggalo culture like that. In fact, Christians would rather just boycott Juggalo culture.
Yeah.
You know, you'd have the gathering coming to certain towns, and local churches would be wanting to boycott it. Instead of trying to reach
infiltrate
it out.
Yeah, infiltrate
and what's crazy is through our outreach and us doing that, Joe would contact these local churches, and it's crazy. Once we meet with these churches and explain the culture to them and explain the ministry to them, they're like, oh, we want to help. Yeah. So we'd have people coming and volunteering to help minister. We'd have churches packing sack lunches. It was just crazy.
That's awesome. You got to be able to mobilize the army of God, man. Yeah.
It's like a fear factor. Like the church is afraid to deal with that. Like,
and that's why they're here. But that's why they're here.
Yeah. But
yeah.
It's
scared to deal with it. Yeah.
Christ said, I came, I didn't come for the righteous,
Mm-hmm.
The
wicked repentance, no doubt.
So how are they going to find repentance if we don't go out there? And you also got to keep in mind the majority of these people are never going to step foot in a church.
Exactly.
So we're the only church that we're the only church that they're going to see.
The only Jesus.
So if we stay in the building and we don't go out there, and walk with them, I don't have to partake of their sin or anything like that. The Bible actually talks about that your ways would make them ashamed. Mm-hmm. But how are your ways going to make them ashamed if you're not around them?
Yep.
It's been a blessing ultimately to do that.
One of the big things about the whole secular sacred divide thing, that was a buzzword that was used with Lecrae reaching out and Lecrae working with secular artists. And there's pros and cons. And as someone who's done Christian music, I don't consider myself a Christian artist anymore. Somebody's asking that in the chat, but there's a divide there. Lecrae, you can listen to these dudes' music; they bite off of the secular artists, like Lecrae, Cannon, KB. These guys, you might not listen to Yellow Wolf, but they do. They do. That's why their music sounds relevant for the most part, and even their music still sounds behind because they're listening to the secular music. An album that may have been out 6 months to a year, they listen to it and they recreate it, and then it takes a while for that to come out, and so they're listening to the music of the culture and they're recreating it for the church crowd. And so there's a bunch of punchlines and bars and rhyming schemes that I remember listening to Yellow Wolf, and like, what? Cannon said that, and Cannon took rhymes from Yellow Wolf. I'm like, Cannon listens to Yellow Wolf, so if I'm taking you on top of the Hollywood Valley, looking over the alleyway, I make your balloon pop. It's like Cannon took that and changed 2 or 3 words and took the same thing from Yellow Wolf. I was like, oh my God. And you start hearing it more and more and more, and them taking the beats and just like, oh my goodness, man.
They Jay-Z in it.
They are, and the weird thing about it is, like, I don't believe we should be 7 years behind, bro. I believe, and so that's why I've kind of distanced myself from it, and I think that you know what I'm saying, what I'm doing is really different. That it's relevant. It's totally different, and it's okay to be different. It's okay to think outside the box and bring something different to the table. Someone in the chat room, Chris Garner, he says, I told a guy who listens to a lot of NF, which we can go ahead and say.
I love NF.
We love NF, but we know NF loves Eminem. Okay, let's just say that. Okay. He says, I told a guy who listens to a lot of NF about Truth Seeker, and he listened and called your music secular. I guess I would call my music secular as far as it's not Christian. Like, I don't do gospel rap anymore. And essentially when you stop doing gospel rap, it's when you make songs that aren't about the gospel or aren't about the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus, right? Like, they think that you have to put all of that in every song. And if you don't, then you can't be here. And they would, like, they would say stuff to me back in the day, even when I did gospel rap, like, every song has to be able to lead people to salvation. It's like, bro, I can't.
That's not true.
I know, right?
So you can't make the love.
these
So you
rules
can't
that
make
don't exist, you know?
you can't make a love song to your wife or a
No.
song to your daughter. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. Like,
Yep.
I mean, granted, your faith should show through in every song that you are within those parameters. But to say, I mean, my new album is full of the gospel, but I got a couple songs that are just straight up personal. I'm
Yeah.
just, and I even make some Christian references in those songs.
Yeah.
But
And it should be.
There's
it
no,
should be.
Yeah. Yeah. It should bleed through everything.
Yeah, no doubt. So what, like this podcast, whatever we have on, this isn't a Christian podcast. You know what I'm saying? There's going to be people who have never been in relationship with Christ, and they're going to hear your story and you know what I'm saying, your truth and what's working for you. And they're going to consider it, man. They may come through revelation of Christ through this podcast by hearing your story. And if we wouldn't have you on, or if we wouldn't be in a place that was so-called secular, right? We used to give people hell for having secular music around us back in the day, man. You know? It's so funny, Chris. I'm reading these comments here. Chris says, how dare you be Christian and talk about the Kundalini? I love you guys, man. Mr. Matty Moses says, I feel like As I Lay Dying did a good job mixing in the Christian elements. No doubt, because As I Lay Dying talked a lot about their personal struggle. I think the same way, this is going out on a limb, but maybe even some Tupac, just essentially being Psalms. What are the Psalms? My enemies are chasing me. They're trying to kill me. God, I need you to help me. I feel like I'm going to die. I feel like I'm all alone. Please help. And this is David writing songs to God about his enemies about to kill him and chasing him. And he feels alone. And so that's what that is. That's poetry. That's art. It's like, how are you to label, like, I can't put my life experiences and what I feel, the stuff I'm wrestling with, and be authentic. Or you have to act like you don't believe that. You have to act like you don't dream that or have those emotions. You can't do a song about struggling with pornography, because you're supposed to be set free from pornography, right? You know, all of this type of stuff that you can't. They've got these imaginary rules that they made up, and they don't make any sense.
Yeah, and it's not just that; it's the bylaws that you typically see from congregations. You know, they set up their own man-made standard for the church, and this is what you have to fit to be on the platform, or this and that.
Oh,
and,
man,
it got a lot
at the end for me, bro.
A lot of these bylaws, like, well, not a lot of them. If they're bylaws, they're not biblical. It's something man-made. Like,
they get weird, bro. Traditions of men is what the scriptures call it.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's the Bible, okay, I'll do it. But also at the same time, don't sit here and try to bring up some kind of Leviticus passage to the Jews. I'm not a Jew. Yeah. Like, you know, I mean, like, you have to know your theology, and you have to know the culture, the surrounding, you know, the time.
Exactly.
You have to have all this understanding, you know, and you got to understand. You know, the place and time of things, you know, that's why the Bible says to study to show ourselves approved. You can't just read a King James version scripture and say, well, this is what it means.
Yeah.
It's
You got to know culture and context. You got to know idioms. You got to know what the jokes were. You know, and I know people who study it, and I know people who teach it and stuff. And there's so much stuff that's taught in the American Christian church about the scriptures and references and stuff that totally don't mean what they're trying to say it means, but it means the exact opposite. Things that are being taught, and there's so many things that are there that are just in culture and context, and we don't get. And so a lot of that stuff, you know what I'm saying, turns people away, turns me away. Like you said, they try to put these laws on you. I think tithing is like a big one, because tithing is like, if you read the curses on tithing.
Oh, you mean like Malachi?
Yeah,
Malachi?
If you read Malachi, and if you can just go straight to those couple verses in Malachi 4 that says, I'm going to curse you if you don't tithe, and if you do tithes, test me and try me in these areas and see that I don't rebuke the devourer. And so they'll grab those verses and start preaching them to us like God is speaking that to us. When you go back, like you said, and read the culture and context, or just read the beginning of the chapter. You ain't got to be a Berean.
Yeah,
Just go to the beginning of the chapter, and you'll see, because especially Malachi, because each chapter is addressed to the Levites. We are not Levites. Your pastor's not a Levite. If that is applicable for anyone, it's applicable for the pastors who are receiving people's money. And it's not even for him, but if it was, it would be way more for him than it would be for us, the regular people in the church. Yeah.
A lot of people think that the tithe is supposed to be for the pastor, though. It's not.
Yeah.
The tithe is supposed to be for the church itself.
Yeah.
And I mean, I personally, I pay tithe. You know, I pay tithes, and I I'm not going to get into that doctrinal view or whatever. But as far as it being a salvational issue, a lot of churches preach it like you're going to go to hell if you're not a tither. That is not a salvation issue.
What about what is it? Deuteronomy 14 talks about like every 4 years you're able to consume your tithe on whatever you want and like spend it on yourself. You never hear that preached. Like, hey man, you guys keep your tithe this week. Go ahead, y'all. Take your wife out, buy a nice dress, stuff like that. Like you'll never hear that. And there was so many different rules and stuff, but it's set up a system that is not biblical, man. It just really isn't. There's no way to spin it and see what Christianity that Christ taught and Paul preached is totally not what we have today at all by any means necessary. But they do have a lot of good stuff that they're doing in churches and stuff, and I do appreciate a lot of what they do, and they help people, and there's a form of spirituality that's reserved in the churches, prayer and worship and praying for people, laying on of hands, essentially going into trances while they're worshiping. I mean, you worship God with your eyes closed for 45 minutes, you're going to go into a trance. Like that was something biblically practiced by the apostles and disciples and stuff. And so I like to talk about that stuff. So I do appreciate that they still have that. And not all churches, though, because some churches are totally against raising your hands while you're worshiping or drums in the church. I've been around the block. I know a little bit of it.
Like I said, man, like there's no church is perfect. I mean, every church has its flaws. I mean, and you got to understand it's because it's ran by humans. I mean, initially God is over it, but I mean, if it's ran by a human, it's gonna have its flaws. But I honestly, like, I can't understand a church that's quiet or like not active in worship. I mean, when you read how David was about his faith or his worship or whatever, and then you read about how we're to praise and how we're to have Thanksgiving, like there's nothing quiet about it. So I mean, for me, I could there's no way I'd ever be able to get into a quiet church service. Speaking. Oh, I was just gonna give a side note, man. Like speaking about getting, getting kind of backlash from the church folk, or whatever. On a personal note, I had this older woman, a few months back. She pretty much criticized me for my mohawk and my earrings
on Facebook or at church.
No, it was at church. Actually, it wasn't at church. What am I saying? It was at a get together. But she was a Christian lady or whatever. And I pretty much I tried talking to her and I was being respectful, and then she just wasn't being mutual with it, I guess. And that was it. And then just recently, this woman came to me. And she brought up the scripture from 2 Corinthians about being all things to all men. And she was like, I thought of you. And I was like, wow. I was like, I was like, wow, I didn't expect that from you. But, her perspective on me completely changed. So it's, and it's crazy, like, because I'm not gonna lie, like, and I don't really take offense from it, from older
Yeah, you kind
generation
of
or old
learn.
folks,
You
because
learn.
I mean,
Yeah, you got to show
pretty
grace.
much I pretty much expect that, and I'm not gonna hold it against them.
Yeah.
But it's just it was crazy for me to have that kind of run in.
What about at first though? What about
like,
at first?
Like, wow.
Because I know you kind of had to learn that. So how was it at first when it was happening? Because I'm pretty sure when it first started happening, you started taking it personal, right?
Yeah. Honestly, it was to the point to where I almost wanted to
stop going to church and stuff.
Yeah. No, not that. I almost wanted to just give up on the music, like or at least the avenue I was trying to take it.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I was just like, no, I said, I felt like that was where God was taking me, but I was like, it was kind of like a Joseph scenario. Not saying I was going through all these bad things like Joseph,
mm-hmm.
but it was like, what, this is where you want me to go, but why isn't anyone seeing this?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it? Yeah.
Yeah, I understand, bro.
So.
You sound like you got a little one who's looking for you in the house, man. But I'll say this, bro. If you're seeing fruit and lives are being changed, stick with that if it's working, and that's what it's about. If it's actually working and you're being an impact to the culture, man, keep it up, bro.
Okay, man.
Man, thanks for coming on and hanging out with me. You want to go ahead and give your links out for people who can check you out?
Yeah, man. You can find the Ride or Die album by Payne on iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, all that stuff. Or there's physical copies available at lightridermusic.net. And you can also like me on Facebook, facebook.com/J Payne Music. That's just J, not a J-A-Y. But or you could just look up Jeremy Michael Payne or J Payne and get at me. But I'm down to chop it up with anyone that's got questions or would want to hit me up.
Yeah, definitely, man. So I'd love to have you back on sometime soon, brother. Maybe work with you again in the future, man. Keep up the good work, bro.
Yeah. Okay, man.
All right,
God bless.
Shalom. Peace.
Peace.
Another episode of the Truth Seeker podcast. Good stuff. Sometimes it's hard when you got little ones, right? And they're needy, and so they wanna be a part of what you're doing. I was waiting for the door to open and a little kid to come walking through the room. You guys remember that video? There was a video of I think he was with the BBC over, I guess, in the UK or wherever he was, and he was doing a live feed from his office space in his house, and the door flings open in the background, and his little kid comes walking through dancing. And she's just so cute, man, this little bitty kid. And she sits on this table, and the table falls over, and the books fall everywhere, and he tries to grab her. And then the toddler comes through in the little scooter or what, the little walker. She comes through the door, and she's coming through with the kid, and they're sitting there. Look, they're so cute. And then I guess it's the mom. She comes diving through the door and grabs the little walker and tries to yanks the kid by the arm, and she's dragging him out. One kid's leg gets stuck, and she's snatching him out the room. And this guy's just like on the live feed, trying to do a live broadcast, and the kids barge in the room. It's hilarious, but it's cute. That little kid is so cute, come walking in there dancing, and he just like pushes the kid back, and the kid falls over the table. It's kind of sad. But anyway, if y'all haven't seen that, type in like kid barges in on interview, and maybe I'll post it in the show notes just so you ain't got to do that. But that's funny, and I was waiting for that to happen. It's been so many times where we do interviews and stuff, and the kids want to get on the camera, and sometimes they do, or like a door will open and you see a little kid's head. They're watching their dad do an interview through the crack in the door, and you can see him on the camera. That's so funny, man. It's so funny. So yeah, shout out to everybody in the comment section. Maddie Moses, what up? Chris Garner, yeah. Let me this last comment. Chris says, thanks for putting your story out there. Thanks to you too, Truth. No doubt, man. Yeah, that's what it's about. People not being ashamed to share their story and what's working for them and their belief systems and stuff, regardless of who believes in it and who agrees or who's there to actually try to validate their story, right? And once you get over the aspect that you're looking for other men or other people to validate you. Once you get over that, once you truly find out who you are and know your mission and know your purpose, there's nothing that anyone can do that can offend you or shock you or anything like that, because you know who you are. You know your mission, you know your purpose, no matter how far outside the box it may seem to others. And so you could just imagine. I mean, some of you guys, even reading in the comments, you guys were blown away that this guy has had his face painted on here. But to understand the culture and where he's headed to, like, that's what they do. It's normal. So you could just imagine Jay Payne going to a Christian rap concert at a backwoods Baptist church, and he shows up with his face painted red and blood coming off of his forehead, getting ready to rap and perform. And you could just imagine how awkward that is, or that would be. It gets really weird. And like you said, talking about the different traditions of men and these different things that are expected of the church people, right? And so church culture is its weird own church culture itself. It's a subculture. Church culture is. There's words and phrases that only they understand. There's what we call Christianese, is using this really weird biblical commentary and word phrasing that only church people understand. You're not going to understand it with, like, a lot of stuff in the midst of a regular Christian conversation. Like, we've had some of those people on here, and I'm like, I know the majority of this audience does not understand what in the world we're talking about, because it's stuff that it's idioms and stuff that only church people would get or only church people would know. But I mean, I enjoy talking about it, because a lot of the weird stuff you're discouraged from talking about in churches. Like, you can't talk about blatant things that are wrong, or blatant things that are quirky, or whatever the case is, or stuff that you can't question the authority. And that's why I don't like to deal with a lot of the Western church, right? So Chris Garner's making jokes in the chat now. He says, "You may not be able to rhyme a word with orange, but you can rhyme a word with orange face." No doubt. And I think it was a red, man. I think he does it red. He looks orange on camera, but I think with the lighting, but I think it's a red face for the blood, even though it looked orange. But yeah, he's a good dude. We actually have a song together. He reached out to me some years ago, and we did a song called "Wake the Dead." It's not the best song that I've done, not the best verse. And there's a weird story behind that verse, because I wrote, if you go back and listen to it if you want to, you may be able to find it. I found it. I think I found it on Spotify or something. But just a little background on that verse was that I wasn't going to put out my album, Spiritual Alchemy, and all that. Most of the albums I've done, I had like a change of heart from dealing with the church people who, like Chris said, you can't be a Christian and talk about the Kundalini, or you can't be a Christian or believe in Jesus and talk about this, or you can't do that. I'm a Christian. I'm a believer, but I'm into a lot of different faiths and things that are just ring true universally. And I try to filter everything through the scriptures, but sometimes trying to be accepted by people, if you live for their acceptance, you die by their rejection. So that can be a whole lot of hell, trying to find acceptance from the church crowd and from any crowd, really, that doesn't promote you being authentic. And for me now at this point, that's all that matters, is being authentic. And I don't care what it is. Like, when you thrive in being authentic, and you can make a living by being authentic, and you're not looking for anybody's acceptance, and you can do what you are put here to do, you're called to do, your God-given giftings, abilities, and talents, and do that and thrive in that, man, that is so envious. And that's what moves the nations to envy, man, that you're a beloved of God and that you know who you are and nobody can tell you who you are. Man, there was a long time where until I was able to come into that truth and be okay with who I am. Not that you're right about everything, not that you're combative about every other way or every other ideology, or you just accept everything, right? But that you can approach every situation with love and with grace and not take anything personally anymore. That's the thing about it. dealing with these church people, trust me, it's a headache. It is a headache, man. Most of these people don't know what they believe. They believe one thing one day, then the next day, if the pastor believes it. So dealing with them, it can be straight confusion. But we still show them grace. We still love them. But to understand that they believe that way for a reason, and there's a reason that they believe it, and the reason that somebody taught it to them. So to show everybody grace, whatever is the opposing point of view, whether if you're a Christian and then you have a problem with atheists, or you have a problem with people who don't believe in God, or whatever the case is, like, to show grace and understand why they believe it. There's reasons that they believe it. Most people just didn't come up with it or come to a conclusion like they've studied out something, or if many cases with atheists, or people, if there's a loving God, why do bad things happen to good people? If there's a loving God, why is there rape in the world? So there's questions that they never have gotten answers for. And everybody's different. And you don't have to explain everything you don't have to like start from the ground up with every situation to explain yourself and how you got to this and why you believe it. If that was the case, I would be explaining myself until I'm blue in the face. And I've been there. And there was a time where I was about debate and about breaking down belief systems and what I believe, and explaining it to people, and to hopefully win them over. Now we just proclaim our truth and let the chips fall where they may. And if anybody has questions, I'd love to answer questions, but I don't need you to validate my belief system or my experiences. And this is something that you guys have to walk in as well, to know who you are and to know your vision, know your calling, have a vision for the future, and make it happen. And we're definitely discussing a lot of that on this show lately, about walking in your purpose and walking in your destiny, walking in your calling, and to see people doing it. And now I'm doing it. I'm doing this full time. This is what I'm put here to do. And this is just the beginning. But the podcast, the music, the art, the creativity that I bring to the table, I'm able to make a living off of my art and my creativity. I believe that we all should be able to do that. Whatever it is that you desire in your life, whatever you want to be, that vision that you had, grab a hold of that vision again. Know that God delights in you chasing your dream. I wrote a lyric 2 days ago. I shared it with a friend. And in the lyric says that I can face my giants and never be afraid. I can chase my dreams without chasing them away. To understand that it's a good thing to chase your dreams. And those dreams are there for a reason. There's a reason you can't get those thoughts out of your head. I'm not saying all the negative stuff that comes through, and there is a warfare, there's a battle for your mind, but those thoughts about life and about creativity and about what you want to do, even if it seems so far away, you're looking at your life and you're like, there's no way I can see myself doing this. Like, I want to do it, but I'm so far behind on bills and debt. I barely have any free time. I'm telling you, man, start planting the seeds that you want to sprout tomorrow. Start planting them today. If you don't put nothing in the ground today, you can't expect a harvest tomorrow. Even today, even if you don't have any seeds to plant, break up the ground. Break up that hard ground. Begin to plow. That's the spirit of John the Baptist, was to go forth and be a forerunner to break up that stony ground. And then Christ came and everyone was ready for the message. And so symbolically, we have to go forth and we have to break up that hard ground. And then we have to plant seeds. Then we have to water it. And then we have to tend to it. Then we have to let the sun hit it. We have to nurture it. We have to cultivate it. That's the same thing with your dream and anything that you want to grow, anything in your life. You can do it, you can achieve it, and give God the glory in the midst of it. Because and I have to preface that, because coming out of the church realm, there's so many people that's like, okay, your heart is wicked. And there's scriptures that talk about your heart is wicked. The heart is wicked and deceitful above all else. Who can know it? And it goes back to what we're talking about. We have to know the culture and context and what it's talking about. It's talking about the desires of men. But then there's also scriptures that go forth and say that God has put the spirit of his son in our hearts that cry out, Abba, Father. And then it says, delight yourself in the Lord. He will give you the desires of your heart. So essentially, to make a long story short, delight in the Lord, delight in all those things that are good. Let him become your passion. Let him become your desire. and he purifies your desires, the desires of your heart. We may have bad desires. We have to submit it to God. We have to go through testing and trial and prove that this is right and this is what we want. And what's true, what's honest will stand. You let the fire of God hit it, and it'll burn up all the wood, the hay, and the stubble, and all the things that are there that shouldn't be there. And what's left is refined by the fire, and it'll be even as fine gold, refined by the fire 7 times over. That's what the fire is. And the fire is the trials. It's the things that we go through, but it's also getting in the presence of God and allowing his fire to consume us. When we look back on the scriptures and we see that in the Old Testament, it's all symbolic about where we are today spiritually. But in the Old Testament, they would make an altar and they would bring their sacrifices to the altar and they would burn it. It's the fire. And we serve a God who answers with fire. And this is a symbolic fire that we go through. This is testing and trial. This is how he answers. This is a picture. So bring your sacrifices, bring your dreams, your goals, bring it all to the altar. Lay it down. Let the fire of God consume it. Let him test you, try you, and make sure that everything is pure, that there's nothing getting in the way, that there's nothing there that you want to exalt over God. And that's usually what it is. He just has to deal with your desires. And if he would have given you your dreams 6 years ago, 3 years ago, some of you today, if he was to give you your dreams today and give you a platform, you'd mess it up. You'd get on there, you'd be bitterness and resentment, and you'd use your platform to tear people down. And even not willingly, not knowingly, you would do it. Just because you need healing in certain areas. Trust me, every 6 months, man, we go through a season of breaking down and rebuilding. And you have to plant something. You have to do the work. You have to do the work spiritually. You can't just show up. You got to do the work. You got to show the universe. You got to show God that you really want this. And when you do that, you recapture that dream. The universe works with you. God works with you to recapture these dreams. It's the spirit of love, the peace, and of joy that's your inheritance, man. I'm telling you, this stuff is working. This stuff is working. And we got plenty of friends who are creating the life that they want for themselves. Well, if we look at Drew Gower, one of my right-hand men, who is, he says it himself, morbidly obese, 400 pounds. Guess what the seed he had to put in the ground? He had to get up every morning, whether it's an hour early every morning, and go to the gym. Drew Gower has lost over 200 pounds, and he's been featured on the DDP. Diamond Dallas Page has been featured on his podcast. He's been flown out to Atlanta by Diamond Dallas Page himself, someone that Drew Gower used to watch on the television as a kid. Used to watch this guy on TV, flew him out to feature his story and to even offer him a position in some things that are coming up. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he'll give you the desires of your heart. Work with me on this, guys. It's truth anyhow. I love each and every one of you, man. Thank you so much again from the bottom of my heart. Everybody who's supporting on Patreon. You guys mean the world to me, allowing me to do this stuff and bring these podcasts to you guys. And they're blowing up. They're blowing up on the audio end, on iTunes and Spotify, iHeartRadio, the podcast apps, all of this stuff. Like, the numbers are increasing. It just shows me that you guys are resonating with it. And that works. My inbox is blowing up. People are picking apart the podcast, and little things that are being mentioned or certain guests that we have on are ministering to them. And I'm getting messages in my inbox daily of people thanking me for going there. And I'm telling you guys, people who are in big places of position and power are checking out what we're doing on this show. And it's really cool. It's really cool to get kudos from people who can't publicly thank me. Put it that way. Publicly, they can't thank me, but they reach out and they say, man, you know what? Keep it up. God's blessing you. His hand is upon you. I'm thankful that you talk about this stuff because I can't. I'm in a position where I can't talk about what you're talking about, and I can't be open with it. Thank you for putting your neck out there. So bless every one of you guys who are listening to this right now, and I sincerely love you guys from the bottom of my heart. Shout out to everybody holding us down in the chat room. What's up, Raz? Shalom, my brother. I see you, Indigo Trial. Try not to cry. Amen. That's what's up. Plenty of stuff coming. I got a bunch of interviews on deck. New music on deck. It's coming. We're just going to be consistent. And I don't know when, but it's coming too. We're going to start doing some stuff live. We're going to be, whether we're setting up seminars to talk about some of this stuff that we discuss here, and do hands-on demonstrations with healing and speaking out words of encouragement, and really getting out there to travel and really see some of you people. So if anybody wants to make that happen, send me a message, because we're looking for buildings. We're looking for places that we can come to with our message. So it's going to be amazing. So I love each and every one of y'all. I'm going to say it again. Peace and shalom.
Your way so much higher than mine, so much higher than mine, so much deeper than mine, so much deeper than mine.
Well, that does it for this episode, folks. To hear more episodes of the Truth Seeker podcast, head over to truthseeker.com. And if you're wanting to support the show and get rewards, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Truth Seeker.